Okay, guys, welcome back to the channel. Time for my 2023 Pacific Audio Fest wrap-up video, best of. But I'm going to combine this one with the music clips that I normally do separate in the description. One of my subscribers faithfully uploads and creates a playlist for each day of the show of the songs that you hear in each room when it's possible. And so he did that again. Thanks again, James. And I'll put those links to the title and Qobuz playlist in the description. And then I'll do as well in this video my best of rooms. If you saw my daily wrap-ups, I do a little bit of that already for you. But I want to put it in a more concise package, and I'll have chapters to help you out. Because the first thing I need to do, even before I get to that, if you want to jump ahead, you can. But I want to get to an intro on stuff I'm backlogged on, give you some updates on some other things going on as well, and some funny stories of how we even got to Pacific Audio Fest. So if you're interested in that stuff, stay tuned. I'm going to start off by saying the stuff I'm backlogged on. If you're not subscribed, you might want to subscribe because I got a lot of cool content coming. Still have 2 more videos from the Rhapsody Audio visit where we have the Kaiser and the Ulcivox. Those are going to be really cool videos. Also, still have stuff with back to Xpona. I was doing stuff with EQ, showing people how to do that. Got that. Got the vibration control thing. I'm going to follow up with part 2 of that at some point. IO Designs, that speaker that stood out to me in Munich. I had a Zoom call with them and some of my subscribers. Going to be uploading that. Still have Michael's room to do with the Linkwits from the Home Entertainment Show. Let's see what else I got. Oh, Angela. Angela, she's my new female audiophile. Stephanie moved to California, but Angela is going to do a wife acceptance factor analysis of all the gear at 3MA. That's going to be a funny video. You're going to love that. And then I've been saving this as well for a time period when I'm not so busy, so I can really curate this for you. The Inacoustic Tour visit. That's a company I've been very impressed with, and I'm not even a big cable guy, as you've known for if you've been following me a long time. But this is going to be a tour and a video series. It probably has to be multiple video series. I have so much content that I could not believe from a cable manufacturer. You're definitely going to want to watch this because whether you're a cable denier, believer, whatever, there's some aspects that I think are incontrovertible that will be highlighted here to at least soothe some people on both sides of the equation of if you believe in them or don't believe them. This is a company I think you could trust for whatever metrics you want to judge them on. And unless you have 0 metrics for whatever you care about putting in your system, then that's the only people that probably won't be interested in this. So stay tuned for that. Now, let's talk about how I even got to Pacific Audio Fest because it almost didn't happen. What happened was I was supposed to, my daughter won a state competition for forensic science a while back in Texas. And then she qualified for this international competition in Dallas. Well, it coincided with the day before Pacific Audio Fest. So, and she was coming back from a trip from Japan for a school trip. And it was almost like too much trying to get into one that she was going to literally be off the plane and we'd have to go straight to Dallas, drop her off. Then I'd have to fly to Dallas from Dallas to Seattle. She would do her competition, and then my wife would bring her back, or she'd go back with her group. My wife would have to drive back by herself. It was a big hoopla. Can we even make this happen? But to her credit, my daughter, she didn't want to give up. She didn't want to make excuses. She wanted to do it even though she'd be coming off the plane with no rest. And I wanted to make the Seattle show. I wanted to make sure she, though, got to Dallas. So we all made it work, but we went in the middle of the night thinking we had no other option anyway, but we thought the traffic should be fine going I-45 to Dallas. Well, there was a massive storm, and I guess debris blocked the road. All of interstate was closed in the middle of the night. So we stopped, and because it was stopped and we hadn't had any rest, we literally just pulled into whatever exit instead of sitting on the interstate. And there was like a Super 8 motel. Never stayed in a Super 8 motel, and I don't think I ever will again. Immediately, we couldn't even get in the door. It was painted shut. There was bugs in there. We literally stayed there for 2 hours just to rest while the interstate cleared. $95 for 2 hours in a hotel. Never thought I'd say I did that. But anyway, got up, finally made it to Dallas just in time for my daughter to get up and go straight to her group that was going to the competition, no sleep. My wife checked in to the hotel we were supposed to stay in and got a few hours sleep before she could go back. And then I had to go straight to the airport from the hotel to catch the flight to Pacific Audio Fest. So it was a long journey just to get there. But I think it was important that I went there because there was not a lot of press there and not a lot of even consumers. The traffic was pretty light. It's a great show. I mean, this time the weather was perfect, beautiful. We had so much fun at night. You saw in my YouTube shorts, I showed what we did. And the weather was gorgeous. Pure blue skies, which is not known for Seattle. So I hope the show survives. But the tough thing is for these vendors not having traffic, they're a little worried. But for press like myself, it's important to cover these guys and give everybody their fair share, because at least these coverage I do will live forever on YouTube. And so even though they may not have had traffic, people can now go to these different YouTube clips and at least give them some measure of exposure for attending that show. And so everybody deserves credit. And like I said, I like to focus on the positives. There really were no rooms that I would say I couldn't listen to. Well, maybe the one with the speaker on the windows, that's one where I don't think I could ever get that to work for me. But all the other rooms, even though some of them didn't wow me as much as others, they had the bones and the potential that if I put them in the right room and did, you just can't judge them on show condition. Because as you heard, even some speakers I liked in the past, Source Points, didn't wow me that much at this show. But I'll get to all of that in a little bit of time. Want to give a thumbs up, first of all, an award as an aside right now to my daughter, who won third place in the international competition. That's international for forensic science. So props to her for coming through. I also want to give an award again to you guys. It was so much fun getting to meet you guys. You guys make the show so much fun, and getting to know a lot of you subscribers. That was a great time. And also hanging out with longtime subscribers like Rex and industry people like Val from Acora. Steve McCormick was there the entire time. That is what made it fun. And, that's really one of the things that, sound quality, I've heard all these things a million times, but that is the key takeaway. And really one of the things that the biggest takeaway from this show, the theme is, I think the number one takeaway for me is that the vendor area, and I think I mentioned this one night, held the most important things you should have checked out at the show. Because in that vendor area, even though it was small, had some of the best in the world in their respective product line. Stax, X9000s were there. You can't get a better headphone than that, in my opinion. Certainly it's going to be among the best if you've heard a lot of headphones. Rex was there with the breaker box. I've installed it here. That's another thing I'm behind on. I think I mentioned that. Going to have a lot of content on that in the future. ASC Tube Traps. You got to watch that video. Those make a difference. Make the sound in the room. Every room that had them definitely had an elevated performance than a normal hotel room without them. Charles Kiermoose, his record restoration cleaner. There's nobody better than that at that. And Norman Varney, as you've seen in recent videos, decoupling versus coupling. If you haven't watched those videos, watch the one from Costa Mesa with him. Watch the other one I did today, this past weekend, and you'll see that there's a very convincing argument. I've always been a fan of decoupling. Townsend, EVPs from Norman Varney. I'll be trying those in the near future. And because the vendors now, I've realized what power they have to improve your system, and I've become friends with most of them. As you've seen, I've gone out with most all of them. They are offering for my members, if you join the membership section, again, it's worth a cup of coffee, $5 to join. That will get you some group discounts now I've worked out with these guys to give special discounts for Audiophile Junkie members. So if you're interested in any of those products, come in. I still have to talk to ASC. And then JR, who had a bad back, hope you're feeling better, JR. He couldn't attend. But again, if you're in my membership section and I can coordinate his services with you, again, you're going to get the best pricing possible and discounts that aren't open to the public. So a little bit of extra perk if you become a member, FYI. Also, what I'm going to do is offer an industry tier membership for companies, because my time at these shows now is getting really limited. I spend a lot of time talking to subscribers in the hall. I want to spend more time in the rooms digesting what's going on. I don't have time, especially with the bigger shows, to get into every room. And a lot of manufacturers have asked me, "Hey, can you come into my room? Can you come into," getting more time. And sometimes I can't do it because they're playing music like Eagles or stuff that gets blocked. This one had the most partially blocked videos I've ever uploaded. Sometimes they're totally blocked. Sometimes they're partially blocked. Certain countries can't watch them. And sometimes I just have to share revenue. And I get no money for any of those scenarios when I put. So I've given I'm going to put an industry tier for joining for those that want to support the channel. And again, it's not buying favorable treatment, other than if you are an industry supporter of the channel, I'll make sure I get to your rooms and maybe do a Zoom interview with you so that you can get that attention that I need to start prioritizing when I come to these shows, and people that can help me offset my cost, at least going to these shows. I thought that was a more than fair way to maybe make that a more even deal for me. So any industry people that are interested in that, that should be available under the join button in YouTube. Now, let's get to my favorite rooms. And again, one of the takeaways from that very first day was that this show had budget options that could really put you immediately at that diminishing returns. At the very minimum, you could start in $700-800 with that Vanatu speaker at a source. You're talking about good for starting off any audiophile that's young or on a very limited budget right now. You're going to get high quality sound. You could add a sub like they had in that room if necessary. For youngsters going off to college, this thing fits easily into a dorm room, a condo, an office system. You can attach to it in a variety of ways. Very high quality sound. And then that next tier up, Qobuz. You want something that's at a budget. It was a $3,200 show discount, but I think it's $3,300. I think it's $3,700. Anyway, it's around that $4,000 and under. You get everything, including the source. And the performance is incredible, especially all the features you have for DSP and room treatment, room correction. Really good, if you use it correctly. Now, there was a time when we went back, and when Steve was in there, if you watched that video, he was asking them to bump up the volume, and they still had the loudness button turned on. And so even though it's supposed to be adaptive, still you don't ever want to have loudness on when you're playing it at normal volume. And it made it, the bass did not sound right at that point. But it just goes to show you there are those controls in there that a lot of people overlook, and you don't have that control with a lot of speakers. So the Qobuz gives you that budget option, but you can go up to cost no object. That Sphere would be one that I would consider if I won the lottery. So you have a brand that does everything from, and it gives you a little more cachet than the Emotivas or the ones that don't offer true cost no object cachet. So check them out. I've been touting them. And my friends have bought some as well. Go to the Pete the Greek video. He's very happy with his. Another ones that on the normal speaker metrics that were among my best of show. I can't pick one for sure because I didn't spend enough time in all of them. But I'll tell you what, the Acora room impressed me probably. They've always impressed me. But this show probably impressed me the most because they were in a normal room that you could envision these speakers in. And the performance did not suffer. In fact, it elevated in that room. He was playing it super loud to showcase the dynamics, the ability to effortlessly be driven by the audio research amps. Now, he told me that it was total coincidence that ARC amps were being used. That wasn't intentional, even though Val has now taken over ownership of ARC. And again, even though I went to dinner with him, know him well, I don't badger him with questions and insights on that. There's, some things he may share with me that I'm not going to share unless it's, he says it's okay to share. We'll have a Zoom interview. I told him anytime he wants to share something publicly, I'll be happy to do a Zoom interview with him. So, no questions on that. That everything will come out in due time. But I will say this, I'd be excited about what the future holds for ARC based on what I know so far. And it looks like it's going to be a team-oriented thing. It looks like the industry is rallying around, helping them. It's not like a bunch of bitter vendors going after them and trying to sabotage this. I think there's a whole team effort to make this work, which was really good to hear. But the other thing about the Acora speakers, yes, we played some stuff really loud, the Ratchet, and then he played the Ghost Rider, and we played even 80s music. We heard Frankie Goes to Hollywood, New Order was being played. But I'll tell you what, and Val asked me this, he said, off the record, what did you really think? And I'll tell him, those things were impressive, super impressive. I mean, dynamics out the wazoo. And that's what a lot of people will judge a speaker on. When they crank it and really want to impress people, it passed that test in spades. But I'll tell you what really stood out to me. I told him this. I said, at the end of St. James Infirmary, because I came in near the end of the song, there's a shimmer of the cymbal as the song decays and ends that I thought was exceptional. And especially on the digital version, the streaming version, I thought that was a super high level to show, yes, this is a brute force speaker. I want to play it as loud and dynamic as any other speaker, reference level, it can do that in spades. But also has the finesse to deal with a delicate track like St. James Infirmary, the shimmer of the cymbals. That is actually the takeaway for me that I'll always remember, and one of the benchmarks now I'll use against a lot of systems with that St. James Infirmary track. So they definitely are in my top rooms for this show. Another one that impressed me was just right down the hall from them. Didn't impress me at first because I didn't go into the sweet spot, but Popori, and again, the English meaning of potpourri kind of put me off guard there. What does it really mean? I think it's the last name of the person or something. I got to do some more research, because at first I was like, Dr. Vinyl told me, you got to go listen to these speakers. And I went in, but it was so crowded, I couldn't get the sweet spot. Thankfully, I went back the next day. Dr. Vinyl was in there. He got me the sweet spot. We were able to play some tracks, and I was able to request a track. And so these are full range electrostatics, which very rarely do you see that. Sound Labs did them, and then that's about it. There's not many that'll try to do full range electrostatics, and with no curvature. So Sanders does that, and Edgar uses Sanders in his own home. He likes them a lot, but usually they'll have a bass driver for a hybrid. This is full range, and usually that's a minefield of trouble when you get to bass and dynamics and trying to power it, because that's where Sound Labs had problems. And then you have slap against the stator, would slap against the structure when the excursion's too much. So I had them play a very dynamic track, and they played it pretty loud. Now, not to the level of loudness of the Acoras. Nothing is going to give that level of dynamics at the price point that they were doing a $40,000 electrostatic. But it had a lot of those dynamics in spades, and also the nuance, the coherency, no crossover, one driver type doing everything, and none of the downside of the bass. And it imaged perfectly, like I like about line sources. You don't get that bottom 2/3 or half of the room, floor to ceiling. That was impressive. And so I'm glad I went back, got the sweet spot, and got to hear some tracks that really pushed it. Because some of the other things they played, in fact, even before that, some Hungarian music, I'm not familiar with it, so I don't know whether it's good or bad, but I could sense the potential in it. But yeah, it definitely impressed me. So they are definitely among my favorites, and came out of nowhere that last day. Also, another one that's always a favorite of mine is Joseph Audio. And it's just because it sounds like music when I go into his room. The crossovers are perfectly, the drivers are perfectly, it's just coherent. The sound comes away from the speaker. It doesn't sound like it's coming from the speaker. And especially the bass, which often happens with a box speaker of some sort, you at least sense bass drivers and the rest of the music, and you sense where it's coming from. He's done a fabulous job of mitigating that to the most possible. Maybe not floor to ceiling like a line source and all of that, but in terms of put that one against equal type Wilsons, and Wilsons are good speakers. I love them. They're really good. I take Joseph any day of the week, though. I mean, that's just another level of sophistication in that crossover design, matching drivers, that I've always preferred, especially with a lot of the content he plays. And I got to give him props for always playing cool content. I never have to ask him to play anything. I just like him to play whatever he wants. So Joseph Audio, again, among my best. Let's see. Another one right there is the Stenheim and the Infigo room, because, yes, I did detect bass not perfect in that room, but because there was no treatments, I still know if I put that system in the right room, that was really high end. And it did shine on the same track versus across the hall with the Revel speakers, and equally good electronics with the Modrite. The Stenheim and the Infigo were at that next level that the price point would suggest. And so I got to give them props for at least showcasing that. Another one that came out of nowhere was the Bella Sound and Analysis Audio. Now, I'm familiar with Analysis Audio. Line source, almost Apogee-like, a little bit easier to drive. But this Bella Sound impressed me with driving them effortlessly. And also, the aesthetics were really my type. I mean, I was extremely impressed with the aesthetics. It was actually a wood front baffle, faceplate, sorry, but it looked metallic, almost stainless steel, almost like a refrigerator door, but super nuanced in terms of contours. It wasn't all heat sinks and just massive, which is starting to turn me off. It's just getting ridiculous. And everything that he did made total sense to me after I talked to him some more. Again, beautiful looking, beautiful sounding, came out of nowhere. I give thumbs up to Analysis and Bella Sound. Another one that I have to upload this video. Maybe I'll upload it before you see this or after. I don't know when I'm going to do it. But the Odyssey audio room was really good on sound metrics, just like at Expona. But it was a long video because I went in there. But he was also waiting for Greg Weaver, another piece of press person in the press, to come in, and also his dog to come in. So this is the first time I have footage of a true woofer, the dog, in there with other woofers, and this is a huge dog. In fact, it was barking and scaring people out of the room. So I'm going to edit this video because it's so big. It took a while before we actually got to music. But there is a rundown of the gear, and he brought all the symphonic line stuff, not his electronics, which are much more affordable, but similar in performance. But he brought the big boys, all the symphonic line, and his $4,200 speakers, which are a steal, especially if you know how to set them up like he does. He sets them up super wide in these rooms, which you think, oh my God, that doesn't make any sense. It does when you sit down and listen, and then he treats the first reflection immediately. But even that first reflection is so soon after the initial impulse, especially as wide as he sets them up, that you probably aren't getting that delayed reflection that you do in a normal room. Very clever what he does. And he also eliminates a lot of crosstalk by putting them so wide and not even towing them in. So you get that 3D immersive feeling, much like the Bach can give you, at a much higher level, but especially with speakers directly on axis. So he does a lot of clever things to work a hotel room. He always complains about them, but it's always good when I end up listening. So thumbs up to Klaus again with his room. Like I said, there really was no speakers that... There was disappointment. There was a string after lunch where everything I went into was not as good as I was used to. I talked about the source points. They just weren't set up, I thought, right. They were being driven by a Sansui. The noise floor was high in that room. It wasn't like an Andrew Jones demo, I'll put it that way. Nowhere near showcasing what those speakers can do, properly set up. Even the Qobuz, during that little span of rooms that just disappointed me with the loudness on, you can have, that's a takeaway you got to understand. If you don't like a room that other people like, or vice versa, it may be just because you only had one song at one volume that you either liked or didn't like. You didn't get the sweet spot, noise floor, bleed through from other rooms. There's so many variables. Or how well did they set up the room and set up speakers? So I do give credit to people like Klaus who can get the most out of it, because there's so many people that pretend to be experts and they can't even set up their own speakers. This is crazy. You have to learn at a minimum in this hobby how to set up your own speakers, or hire the right people to do it for you. the experience. If you don't want to invest that time, I understand people's time limited. They just want to come home, listen. Then hire people. People have asked me to come over and work with their EQ and help them set stuff up. When you buy the Bach, you're going to get measurements in your ear, what goes into your ear. And Edgar will spend as much time on the phone helping you do room treatments and getting you that value alone before you even turn on the Bach is going to improve your system without the Bach. But even with the Bach, even more so. That is so valuable and an overlooked part of the Bach. And again, the Bach wasn't here. People were asking me about it. I don't know if it's going to be at Capital Audio Fest. Again, join the membership section. We have lots of members using the Bach, and I'll keep you posted as much as possible. And who in the country has them already. A lot of people are getting them delivered in the next couple of weeks. So we might have home places around the country that can do home demos for you besides my place. So shoot me an email or join the membership group and you can talk to these people directly. All right, I think that's it. Again, in the description will be the playlist. Lots to come, so sign up, subscribe, and I'll see you back here soon.